Hello, this is Oregon Moto John. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate all you have been watching, and we're just having fun learning about bikes. Today, I want to talk about the 2024 KTM TBI. As many of you know, I've been riding the TPI. I really liked the TPI. I put close to 30 hours on that bike, and I bought it used, traded it for a Super Duke. Street bike that I just wasn't putting much mileage on because I had my 350. I went through a series of 4 strokes, a KTM 500, 350, 690, 890. All of them were good bikes, no complaints on any of them. Just found myself drifting more towards trail riding, and so this trying the 2-stroke was a bit of a experiment, because as a kid I moved away from 2-strokes, not because I didn't like them. They were just a big pain. They fouled plugs, they were air cooled. Water cooled bikes were starting when I was young, but I couldn't afford them. They were kind of the newer bikes, and they were hard to start. You know, like I said, you fouled plugs. You were in a power band that had you in a wheelie or peeling out, or it was stalling. You just didn't have a lot of torque, but they were still fun. But I just kind of drifted away from them because just the reliability. It seemed like I did a lot of more wrench turning on them than I did riding. So I rode 4 strokes for a long time, got to college, didn't ride any bikes for about a decade, got out and went back to 4 strokes. For highway use, I still lean towards 4 strokes just because it's easy to maintain a throttle speed, and they seem to not mind that. So where I'm going with all this is, when I tried my TPI, my 300 TPI, I was like, hey, this is a blast. And then I started hearing all the things about the TBI bikes, the 2024. So I thought, well, you know what? I got this other bike used. Maybe I'll try a new 2024. So here's what I want to say is, I really like the 2024, TBI. Once it's set up, I like it as much as my TPI. But if you have a TPI, that bike ran really, really well. So I feel like the TPI's kind of got a bad rap in that people said they didn't work well, and they weren't reliable, they didn't run well. But my experience was not that way. So I don't want anybody to get the idea that I upgraded this because I didn't like the TPI. I think that's an important point, because that's kind of why I did it. I thought, everybody talks about this being so much better. I thought it has to be better. Well, I think there are aspects that are very good, but to switch bikes, I don't feel like it's necessary. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons, but also let's talk about this new bike. I made some notes, but I want you to have a little history. So the new 2-stroke bikes, KTM say 2 strokes. They start with a push of a button. They always start, they always run, they always idle. They have, instead of being like the old 2-strokes where you were in a power band or you weren't, these things have torque like you wouldn't believe. This is like, I call it my tractor. I'll stick it in 2nd gear and I've lugged down to a couple miles per hour, 5 miles per hour, and going up a hill, and it will keep chugging. I can't believe it. My 350, I love it, but I had to be feather the clutch a lot so it wouldn't stall. And I got to where by riding it never stalled. But anyway, so these new 2-strokes, you have low range, mid range, and they have high range. So they're not like the old 2-strokes that I knew. They're just a blast. I didn't ever foul a plug on my TPI. I haven't fouled a plug on this, although I still carry one and a wrench. I just don't want to be caught not riding because I don't have it. But they're a whole nother breed. This, not being the EXC, it's the XC-W. I just add my oil in here, and then I put regular fuel in here, and it mixes it for me. I know there's pros and cons to that, but that's a whole nother video. So I like that. It has just been, they have been a blast. I am nothing against my 350 here, but since I've had the 2-strokes, I haven't been riding any of my 4-stroke bikes, not because I don't like them. This has just been so much fun, and I'll probably go back to 4-strokes again. So I'm not trying to cut on 4-strokes here. I'm sure I'll be back. But for right now, this has been really refreshing. So going back to the XC-W, It has awesome forks. I mean, these forks, they are so good. It's the best forks I've ever had on any of the bikes I've owned. I doubt I'll do any upgrades to them other than service them, normal service. The rear shock I'm very happy with as well. I got it as flush as I needed it to. It takes the bigger hits, it takes the small stuff. I don't feel the small chop, so awesome suspension on the TBI. My TPI bike, my 21 Erzberg Rodeo 300, it was good too. I did end up putting some Raven cartridges in and a National rear shock just to see what that was like, and it was excellent with those. I mean, I think it was on par with this or maybe a little better. So, but I don't want to say that for sure because I'm still liking this suspension so much. So out of the box, great suspension. Maybe a little more torquey than the TPI, maybe. On this bike compared to my old bike, but that again, it's kind of subjective seat of the pants feel. Headlight is definitely better. Every bike I've had, including my Husky over there, I've had to upgrade the headlight and or the bulb. This one, it is supposed to be 300% brighter, so it is amazing. I mean, it's nice to get a headlight that actually works, and I have caught myself in the dark a number of times with some early morning rides, and before the sun came up, and I love having a headlight. And the switch is easy to get at too. It's just this kind of a push toggle instead of the thing you got to pull up in that you can't get at. So I love that. I love the headlight. I love the forks. I like the gearing. I haven't had any trouble with the gearing. I'm running the 45 tooth OEM shock here, or excuse me, rear sprocket, and I think this is a 13 up front, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But I'm running stock gearing, and it's been really good. First gear is low. Second gear is second and third is what I use most of the time. When I first bought it, I felt it was a little too soft, but I was in the wrong map. This has a map switch up here, white and green. You just push the button. I think the EXCs come with without the map switch, but I think it comes in the green, so you wouldn't really need to buy that, in my opinion. The green map is where it's at, which is supposed to be the more aggressive map. And then I changed out the throttle cam. This is a very easy procedure. You just change this little cam out in your throttle here, just crack it open, swap it on and off. Comes with the gray, I believe the white's in there now, and the manual had different colors. It didn't correspond to what I had, but this is what came out, this gray one, and I believe I put the white one in, and that helped dramatically to have better throttle response to where I didn't have to twist the throttle so much. Because at first I'm like, my TPI is better. I was a little worried because my TPI, I had it set up to where I think the guy I bought it used had a map on it and a high compression head, and man, that thing ran good. So I was a little let down at first by the motor, but now that I've got the different throttle tube cam in there, I'm liking that. That's working well. And then running on the green map, and so that seems to have solved it. I probably eventually will put a high or a medium compression TSP head in there, and maybe a map, just because I feel like the transition from mid-range to top end is, I don't know, seems to hesitate. Not terrible, but just not quite as clean running as my TPI was in that one area. But most of the time I'm using low to mid-range, so on the trails is where I'm riding, so it doesn't matter. It is like a tractor, not torquey, awesome forks. I'm trying to think of anything else. I want to say the headlight. Yeah, use the green map. So things that help this bike that you have to do right away, in my opinion. You have to set your sag. The first ride that I didn't have my sag set. I felt like I was riding on my front end. It was real uncomfortable feeling and did not handle as well as my previous bike, but it was set up for me. So that makes sense. So what I did is I set the sag to 110, 111 millimeters in the back, just by changing the preload on the fork. Easy to do. And then I raised my bars up with the Enduro Engineering, handlebar risers. That helped a ton. So I'm going to go ahead and change angles on the camera here so that I can take you around the bike to show you some of the things I did. But that is just some of the things that I did. Use the green map, swap out that throttle cam. I had to set my idle up. It wouldn't idle when I got it new. So there's a red knob on top of the car. Real easy, just twist it clockwise, idle it up, fine, easy fix. And I have short arms, so I needed to raise the bars. So raise the bars, set the sag, green map, change out your cam. Maybe right at once, first. And then I did tilt my starter button down. I didn't like that starter button at first. I was hitting that all the time. I never hit it when it was start on the right and stop on the left. Not once on my old bike, but first ride I must have hit the start button 3 times while it was running. I really wasn't happy with myself. If one day my starter fizzles out or the Bendix in there's breaks or something, I'll be like, yeah, I did that. So, but since I just loosened the screw here and I tilted the start stop, which is in 1 unit down, I have not had any issues. So just to continue here, the 2024 really is an all new bike. The rear axle is bigger. You have to get different wheel spacers and seals for the rear wheel to transfer a new wheel set to this bike, but that's definitely doable. The switches up here were different for me because you have this, this is your map button from easy to green, and I don't know why on the XC-W you'd ever use the easy map. It just really was smooth. I added a temperature gauge here. This is like a moped bracket, and it works perfectly with a Trail Tech. Temperature gauge, so you know what your engine's doing. I think that's essential on a 2-stroke. So you know what your engine's doing, and I did have to put some silicone tape under here so that mounts securely on there. But it's perfect. It's just low profile. It's out of the way. So here's that start button, and when this came stock, this was rotated up, so when you're on your throttle, what you would hit was, it just, when I went to stop the bike, I was always hitting this. So now with this rotated down, easy fix, you don't have to change any switches. Now when I'm on here and I just reach over, I hit stop, and then if I do need to start it, I come down here, and that prevents me from hitting the start button, hitting the start button while your intention is to stop it. So there's that. The seat comes off in a new way here. You use this screw here instead of the old one where there was a screw back there. That doesn't really bother me. I've added some stickers because we all know stickers make you go faster. Here's I don't like this radiator cap. My word, I had it, the first I couldn't get it off with just my grip strength. So anyway, you have to buy a tool for that, which is right over here. There's a couple options. You can get this bulletproof one or this Shred 3D one. They both work just as good. And then once you get it off, what I did was I put a little, and this makes it just, this bulletproof one especially is really sweet. You just push down and then it twists off. I put a little silicone grease on the threads, and not inside the radiator cap, but just around the tabs that engage. And that, now I could actually do it by hand since I lubricated that a little bit. So something, when you get it off, maybe just put some light silicone grease or something that's friendly with plastic on there, and that'll make your life easier. Not to where it'll contaminate your radiator fluid, but just on the threads and on the tabs. You'll see it where you need to put it when you take it off. So the starter button, I want to talk about that. Here's your idle screw in here. It's right on top. It's like a 4-stroke carburetor. It looks real similar to my 350 over there, and you just turn this little screw in there clockwise, and it will it'll get your idle up. And then the bottom, it's hard to see in the video, there's a choke button down there. So there's the rear shock, easy to adjust with finger clickers. That's a win. I should say that the rear shock, you can adjust everything with finger clickers, and also on the front forks. I love that. Put my fork bleeders on there, something that you can add. Those are some of the key points. But I like this bike now that it's set up. I'm enjoying it. Here's this Trail Tech temperature gauge that I added. I got it from Jeff Slavin's Racing. It's an 8mm fin. I'm gonna put that on my 350. Oh, another con you're gonna have to get, which is a pro and a con. This is really easy to get off to service your air filter, but it used to be that on my 2021, my 350, and my older generation 300 took the same air filter, which was great. I could just clean a bunch of filters, and they worked on both bikes. However, now, you know, you have to get. I had to buy different air filters for the new bike, so for the 2024, because it's been changed. Another thing is they changed this fuel, where it sucks the fuel out of now, instead of sucking from the bottom down here. This is a pro and a con. They used to suck fuel from here, kind of like on this 350. Here's the previous generation. So you can see, because this is susceptible to damage, I put a billet Takomoto low profile spigot on there, and that helped at your fuel pump. Everything's sitting down in here, so you can really suck most of the fuel out. Well, now they've made there's a little splash basin up in here. I'll show you. So here's where your fuel pump is now. The pro is you take off these 4 screws and this thing pulls out. You can swap a fuel pump out really pretty quickly now. And, you know, pretty easy to do. But this fuel has to, you know, really splash up into a little place lower down in here to be utilized. So, you know, that is something. It remains to be seen how that uses. So far, hasn't become an issue for me. The battery is in a different location. Instead of being on the back where it used to be, now it's up here. You have your ECU. These relay switches are cool. I guess these light up green when you start the bike to let you know what the different systems are doing. I'm upside down there, so that's pretty cool. You can see ignition lights, brake horn, pump, and fan, so that's nice. Oh, if you're going to be riding trails, add a fan. I'm a big believer in keeping engine temperatures at the right temperature, so if you're going to do trails, add a fan. If you're in open areas, it probably doesn't matter, but you can tell I like to know what my engine's doing. The fact that I added this temperature gauge and this fan just puts a fin. I know it's probably more accurate if you plumb it into your radiator fluid, but I've had good luck with these, so I just want an idea of what my motor's doing. And so you want to put a fan. It's nice that the XC-W Hardenduro comes, but you know, is this Hardenduro model worth it over the other one? We could debate that, right? I like the bling. I like something a little different. I like the graphics. So for me, just to buy it out of the box and have a lot of things ready to go with protection, you know, the protection back here, you know, this little guy, and the hand guards are kind of tie into the handle, so they're not ideal, but they're okay, at least for something out of the box. I like the wheel set. It comes with black wheels and the orange nipples, etc., but an orange hub, so I like it. I did change out the front guard that was plastic to this one, this STR brand, which is, they have carbon fiber, but this is some kind of a, I don't know, polycarbonate material, or I'm probably wrong, but anyway, it's strong. I like it, and I can still service my wheel. In Oregon and Pacific Northwest, things that cover this disc, it just eventually gets really dirty in there if you can't ever get in here. At least this way I can get in here to turn my wheel and wash that. Put some radiator guards in there, just some Tusk radiator guards. I'll do another video with mods that I've done or add-ons, but anyway, I like the Hardenduro model. It was what was available at my dealer when I went in, so but would you need to seek this out? No, just the other one's great. If you didn't have the Hardenduro, the regular XC-W, I would buy that in a heartbeat. So I didn't necessarily seek this out. It's just what my dealer had and wanted to move it, so it worked out. So there's just some kind of my thoughts. You know, a little bit of my background, 4-stroke versus 2-stroke, what I'm riding mainly now. Well, if you're going to be doing a little bit of street, it's hard to beat 4-stroke, just holding that throttle. My other 300 was plated, and I did ride it on the street one time, but it just, trying to hold a 2-stroke steady at 55, 60 miles an hour on pavement. I just didn't find it really fun. Whereas this, I could do that all day long. It just doesn't seem to mind. So if you need to do pavement, I would go 4-stroke. But if you're going to be mainly on trails and things like that, then 2-stroke's hard to beat. Oh, just a last word is tires. It comes with the Dunlop AT81 tires, which are excellent tires. I love those AT81s and everything. But what I ride here, which is really wet, sloppy conditions, I just find the rubber on those, it's a little harder, which is good for when it starts to even dry out just a hair. But when it's really wet and sloppy, I found something else works, Golden tires, or I'm running the Dunlop AT81 EX on here, so those can work pretty well. And I went tubeless on this, which, man, I'll have to do another review on that. I came from heavy duty tubes, and I still am using heavy duty tubes in the front of this, but I'll eventually switch to tubeless on that. So anyway, using different tires on here for wet. You know what you like in wet, so run those. I'm running a Bridgestone up front, which I just wanted to try at X31 or 31X, however you say that. And I was happy with it. Running the non-fatty, so it will knife in and bite. So I did put different tires on it just because it's so wet here. So again, that's not something you would need to do. When you get the bike new, a few things you need to do. Check your chain tension. Mine was definitely loose, so put that in spec. If you pull your wheels, pull your spacers out and put lots of grease in there to help seal out water if you're in an area where there's a lot of water. So I did that. Pull these out and put anti-seize on the bolts here and on the underside, because those tend to seize. So I did that. I also put anti-seize on these. When you pull a wheel, pull those out. Put anti-seize on those when you run them back in. Lube up your axle bolt, axle bolt. There wasn't much grease on any of that stuff. And I'll do the swing arm and other bearings and other things later, maybe in a year or so, in the headset as well. My pivot bearings for the clutch and brake had no grease on them, so that's an easy one. Just pull this out, grease it, pull this lever out, grease it, watch the spring when it pulls out, how it went in there, so you get it back the same way. Grease up all these pivots. There was like no grease on there, which is fine, that's easy. I also did the front brake perch over there, pull that bolt, grease up the pivot and bolt. So that's something you want to do. Of course, make sure your reservoir here is full of oil, KTM 2-stroke oil. Likewise, I greased the axle up front, pulled the axle spacers out and put grease in there. That helps seal out water. Tighten your spokes. That's something to do on a new bike after your first ride. And then I did change my oil in my gear case after a couple hours, and it came out, like you'd expect, break-in debris. So those are just some things that you can do on this new bike when you have a new bike. Another thing is just to put a sock. See that red little gasket there? That just has a sock on the end of it, and it just drops in your tank. So then when you fill it, it has to go through that sock to filter the fuel. Kind of a pre-filter, if you will. I think that's a good idea for a new bike. So I put that on there, and there's that little skirt, 2-ride skirt for this filler cap. It just slides on there to help keep debris out. I think that's a good idea too. So going back to the purpose of this video, which was to talk about the TBI. I'm happy with it. I do think I'll be doing some things with mapping just to smooth out the upper end of the throttle. But if I didn't, I'd be happy with how it runs right now. But you definitely have to set the sag. I would advise the throttle cam if you like a bike that has a nice touchy feel to it, precise feel, then do that. If you're just getting into biking and hey, run it on the easy map, the white map, and keep the throttle the way it is. Get used to that first. Then maybe in 6 months to a year, maybe you change it, or if you like it the way it is, leave it. But for me, coming from my old TPI,
that really seemed to run good and was pretty, I don't want to call it high strung, but just ran really well, I needed to do something. And I haven't needed to touch the gearing now. Kyle at the Dirt Bike channel, he has swapped out for geared it down, going from a 45 to a 47 rear tube sprocket. I think that could work. That's an easy thing, a cheap thing, and I think that makes sense. So I think for many people that could be a really good suggestion. But for what I'm doing right now, I'm happy with the gearing. I'm going to leave it, and who knows, maybe down the road I'll try that too. But I tried a few other things with the mapping and the throttle cam first. Well, hope this helps. Hope this helps someone if you're debating between a 350 or the 300. If you're going to be doing any highway, I probably would lean more towards I would definitely lean towards the 350 or 500 if you're going to do a lot of highway, or 690 or something like that, 890 if you're not going to do any single track and you want to go longer distances. But for riding there, then hitting trails, wow, I do still love this 350. That's why I still own it. I just if I have to do pavement, it's hard to beat that. But if you're gonna tow up there, put in the back of a truck, moto tote, trailer, what have you, cargo trailer, flatbed, this is great to unload and just have a bike ready to go. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. I hope this was useful. I wanted to make something that would help a person understand a little bit of the differences between TPI and TBI. And, of course, TBI is throttle body injection. It's injecting the oil into the throttle body and then it's going into your motor, whereas the TPI had transfer port and it had these ports on either side of the engine to transfer the oil to the motor and fuel. So I had good luck with the TPI, but there were so many videos out there about the TPI not being reliable, and just people would kind of, not without saying it, kind of act like, yeah, no, TPI is what you want, and maybe it is, I'm not sure, but I had good luck with it. And so if you're on the fence and you really like your TPI bike, keep riding it. It's a great bike. But if your other bike's getting ready for a top end and you're ready for a new bike anyway, well, I wouldn't be scared of the 2024. I'm enjoying it, but you do need to set the sag right away. Anyway, I don't want to be too repetitive. If you've hung out here for the duration of this video, good job, because I know that's a lot of information that got kind of long. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll have more content with this. I'll do another video about, try to talk about the suspension, how I set that up, and some of the other things that I've done to the bike that I think are useful. All right, we'll keep riding, and as always, have a great day. Seize the day. Oh, one gripe. I forgot to include this in here. KTM, give us a manual. I had to print this off the internet from their website. I don't enjoy that. I mean, you're spending this much money on the bike, and I have to go to eBay or someplace like that and download, and I like a printable manual, and so I've been going to eBay. You can find a user's manual or owner's manual, and you can also find a repair manual. And I had to do that with my 350 and also with this bike. I just think that's silly. You spend this much money, how much could it cost for them to print a manual and give it to you when you buy this bike? You used to get a little case that neoprene case to put your stuff in, and KTM cut that, and I don't know. I bought Hondas, and at least it comes with a manual. I just feel like, KTM, come on. Really? We don't get a manual. So anyway, there's that gripe. I do have a gripe, and that's one of them. That's one of the few. I love KTM, Husky. Their bikes have been great. I have other bikes too, so I'm not purely, but this isn't the only bikes that I ride, but for trails I found that these just work well. So come on, KTM, bring the manual back. I'm sure they won't, but You know, for adjusting my suspension, I had to download this off the internet because I didn't have my other manual yet, and it's just, I find it to be a pain to look on my phone and then do things. So I had to print this off just so I could work on a new bike that, in my opinion, should have came with a manual. So there I am. I'll try to get off my soapbox now, but I just thought, as you can tell, it irks me. Great bikes, love it, but come on, give us a manual. It's ridiculous. I also love the brakes. The brakes and the clutch feel on this are very good. The Brembo to Brembo, looks like clutch master cylinder reservoir at least, really smooth, modulates really nice. And then I do like the Brembo brake feel. The Husky has different brakes. Maybe you guys know what these are, but they tend to come on the Husky line, and I'm not sure what they are, but anyway, the feel on them is just, you know, they're bled and everything. It's just, even brand new, it was just a little numb. Like maybe they were making it for the trail so you don't get a handful of brake when you don't want it. But I think most of us who ride motorcycles, we want a good feel. When we want brakes, and we can learn to modulate the brakes. You know, you eat it a few times and you learn how to modulate those things. But I'd rather have a strong front brake, one that I can modulate, rather than something that is weaker. So good job, KTM. The front and rear brake on this, I just have found very nice. I mean, you just barely squeeze it. You can one finger this or two, and it's very nice to work, as well as the clutch. So I forgot to talk about that initially, but the suspension, the engine, the clutch, the brakes, they're all very good. So there really isn't anything on this bike that stood out as a very glaring defect. Fuel economy. I do find that the fuel economy might have been slightly better on my TPI. I don't have any hard data to back that up, other than watching the fuel tank when I do similar rides. But this one's really close in fuel economy. So don't want you to give the idea that this is a gas hog. And again, I'm basing that on subjective data, so I don't have any hard data to back that up. But it just seems like this might use a little more fuel than my TPI did. This little bracket that this mounts on was from Motion Left Mopeds, and I don't know, I like it. It's small, it gets out of the way, and I did just put a couple wraps of silicone tape under that, or else it was too loose, and now it's actually secure. It's not heavy duty, but it's actually plenty for that. And I couldn't find any other brackets to use with that. I scoured the internet, and that's what I came up with. So it fits the gauge perfectly. So if you want to add a temperature gauge, and you can go with a different option if you don't want to go with the one that goes in the little fin in here, you can get a one that goes into your radiator coolant system, which is, I'm sure, more accurate. They also have one that goes on your spark plug, but I just want it easy. I just want a general reference. And it works good. I know when I'm hot on the trails, and I know when things are cooler, and I just like having an engine temperature gauge so I know what's going on. It can help you prevent have an engine grenade, when something's not right. So all in all, I would say that the 2024 TBI bike is definitely one of the best bikes I've owned. Although the 2021 Erzberg Rodeo TPI is right up there with it. And I'd say right now, it'd be hard to pick a clear winner. Those have both been some of my favorite bikes.